other than dating in high school, I don't think I've heard no this much. So, welcome to episode 3 of the highly, highly rated and regarded Interim Era Podcast, the number one podcast for those in the interim era. Right here with Matt C. and Mark Palmer. Mark, how are you doing?
Doing well. I've got another interview today, 2 more next week. So getting prepared for those and getting in the right mindset.
Nice. That's great. Congrats. I'm thinking all about mental health right now. And that is a good segue because we have someone that both you and I have worked with in the past and someone that has an awesome background as a primary care provider. She's been at the Cleveland Clinic. She's been a lead physician. She's been a chief medical officer and just really worn a lot of hats. And she's here today to play chief psychologist to us, Mark.
That's a scary job.
And welcoming the one and only Dr. Kelly O'Malley. Dr. O, how are you doing today?
Great, Matt. Thanks for having me on here. I don't know if I want to get in that brain of yours, but we'll see. Hopefully I have some helpful tips.
It's like constant cartoons going on all the time. All right. So I'm really excited when I decided and kind of pitched this idea of Mark to do this podcast. One of the first things that came to mind was doing this episode, which was, I had been through layoffs at large organizations before. I had been part of doing the laying off before, which is extremely tough, but had never sat in the seat of being laid off. So I had never anticipated what the mental health struggle was going to be, the sleepless nights, the just the craziness that comes from this. So that was one of the first things. And when I actually pitched it to Mark, I was like, we've got to talk to Dr. Amalia. Like, I want to talk about the mental health piece of it. So thank you for joining us today. Tell us just a little bit about your background and that way folks can get to know you as we start to kind of dive in here.
Yeah. And if you can't tell, we loved working with you too. So
yeah, I love working with both of you. Honestly, I love working with both of you. And for all those people out there who are hiring, Mark and Matt are top notch. I've worked with both of them on campaigns and, just both very enthusiastic, and they work with you to know what you want. So I recommend them highly.
The check cleared, Mark.
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
So I think we can end the podcast now.
Yes,
yes,
exactly.
Better. Thank you.
No, but seriously, I've worked with you trying to figure out what we need and gotten your guidance and very helpful. So, but really, so my background's in family medicine, and I think in family medicine, we see so much mental health because, there aren't enough psychiatrists to go around. And people are comfortable with their family physician and their PCP, and they open up to them usually. So, there isn't a day that goes by that I think the PCP doesn't see somebody with mental health issues. And most of them are everyday stressors. Everybody has stressors. And I think sometimes it's easier to open up to your PCP. And some people don't know how to broach that topic, but, you can just say, hey, I'm struggling. Hey, I'm feeling a little stressed today. Is there anything you can do to help me? But every single day we see people with mental health disorders and we treat those things. So, I don't think that any PCP can be a family physician or work in primary care without seeing mental health problems.
Yeah, I think that was the most surprising thing. It only took us like a week and a half to put this thing together. It didn't take me 6 months to get in to see you.
Well, that's the beauty of direct care, though.
Yeah, right. That is right.
Amen,
because
sister.
I think it's a good thing to mention just before we dive into this is if you are struggling and you want to talk to someone, and whether if it's your COBRA insurance doesn't cover a psychiatrist or a psychologist or even just somebody to sit down with, to try your PCP, right?
Oh, yeah. Your PCP really can be your first line in anything because they can connect you with resources. Also, if you don't have mental health coverage, there are community mental health resources everywhere because there are funds for community mental health resources. So every county, every state has resources that are free or sliding scale. So, a lot of the people out there may have health insurance benefits that have run out or, may have limited funds, but they can access those resources through their county or state mental health bureau.
Awesome, awesome advice. Thank you so much. So to dive right in, when you hear the words layoff or job loss, what's the first mental health challenge that comes to mind?
Well, I think that that's stressful for everybody. But I think, like you mentioned, I think the first thing, if people are struggling, I think the first thing they struggle with is sleep. So, I think you start worrying and people have trouble falling asleep. They have difficulty staying asleep. So, they'll wake up in the middle of the night with that 3 a.m. Oh my goodness, I should have, could have, would have, I should have said this, or I wish I would have done that, or I could do this, or I have to do X, Y, and Z tomorrow. And just that anxiety and that overwhelming need to, have control over things because they lose control. And they're just worry, worry, worry. So they have difficulty sleeping. So I think one of the easiest things they can do and fairly cheap is to do things like Headspace or Calm or go on YouTube and get meditation videos so that they can find ways to relax. Okay, because sleep is important. It's counterproductive because then when you get up the next day and you're ready for your interviews, you're tired. You're not going to be on your A game. But it's very difficult to stay asleep when you're worrying. So I think that's one of the first things that people have difficulty with is sleep.
Yeah, and it's I think the thing that comes to mind most is immediately you think that, oh my gosh, when you go through a layoff, and again, first time I've been through it, you think, oh, the financial stress is probably what's going to crush you, but it's a big thing. Like I don't want to act like it's not, but I was not expecting the sleepless nights and like as my wife said, you're going through the stages of grief right now. I'm watching
Yes.
go through it, and then you've bounced back to reasoning, or you've bounced back to this. She would say to me, and it still pops up. Even though it's been a few months, it still pops back up for me. Mark, I don't know if you've experienced that as well.
Very much, because you didn't lose a job, you lost a community, you lost a purpose. So yeah, the income, that's important. But it's the daily interactions that all of a sudden they're gone, and people that you've worked hard to build relationships with, now those are strained because there's a wall in between. So
yeah, and oftentimes you're dropped at if you're remote, or even if you're working in an office, you're dropped alone at home, right? Everybody else has gone off to work. Everybody else has gone off to school or whatever it is. And there you are left with your thoughts.
Yeah, I think with like online work, remote work, I think it's exacerbated the issue too. I think it was different if you were in an office. You kind of had two sets. You had a division of this is your real life and this is your work life, and now that's blurred.
I didn't want to come back to my office until we started this podcast, right? So my office just stayed dark and dingy, and I was like, all right, I've got to go back now because we're starting this podcast. I've got purpose.
Well, they don't call it a work family for nothing. I mean, it is your family. Especially if you work somewhere for a very long time, those people are your family. They're your colleagues. You spend a lot of time with your colleagues, and it's part of your identity. So I think it's hard to lose that identity, and the social connectedness is just so important. Social support is very important for everybody. So I think one of the first tendencies people have is, especially if they've been job hunting for a long time too, is they withdraw from people. So now they don't have the social connectedness of the people at work, but they also start withdrawing from family, from friends, especially as they get more and more depressed or down about, if the job hunt is prolonged, they quit answering texts from family members and friends. They quit going places, doing things with people, and they withdraw. So they're only seeing their nuclear family, and they're not going out and doing things. There are plenty of things you can do that even if finances are tight, but maybe they're embarrassed they lost their job or, whatever. But there's so many people in that same situation that, you wouldn't, if you turn itself around, you would welcome people with open arms, right? But if your job is so much a part of your identity that it just you take a hit. So, I think it's really important to reach out to those people who are your very social support, and make sure that you spend time with your family, your extended family, go to family gatherings, reach out to them for support, spend time with your friends, schedule that in. You can't spend 24 hours a day job hunting. You need to get out. You need to get that social support. You need to schedule it in your schedule, because losing that social connectedness is just going to make you more and more depressed.
So we live on LinkedIn now, like Matt and I both. It's our I guess social media drug of
My
choice.
new coworkers.
Yeah, but I'm still following all the same people I used to follow. I'm still interacting with a lot of people that I used to work with, my quote unquote work family, and life goes on without you. So they're still having the on-sites and the happy hours and those kinds of things. And you see pictures there, and you're missing from them, and that's tough. Like that's a mental hit too.
Right, and I think you need to maybe get out and substitute some things. Get out and volunteer. Volunteering is a great way to make new contacts professionally, personally. Who doesn't feel good about themselves when they go out and volunteer? You feel great when you go out and do something for other people. That's a natural high. That's a natural happiness thing. So get out and fill your life with other things so that you can have that social connectedness to people around.
Can you fill it with something like a podcast? I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe.
kind of did that, right? Well, funny enough, I found myself after all this happened, just like going to Target and just walking around, like not buying anything because you've got that financial stress. You're like, oh my God, I can't buy anything. But I'd just go walk around. Hopefully I would like bump into somebody or like randomly talk to a Target employee or whatever. But it was just, I need to get out around people to where people were at least kind of like talking to me. That then kind of morphed into now I'll ride my bike and go down to Panera and sit at Panera for 2 or 3 hours while I'm looking for a job. Because again, I don't know everybody that goes into Panera, but I'm around people. There's hustle and bustle. Even if I'm putting my headphones in, there's hustle and bustle. And I feel like I'm around people versus sitting here in my house, which has a very like closed in feeling when you're just sitting on the couch looking for a job.
I bet you brighten those people's day, Matt, because you're a fun person. You probably go in and you smile and you brighten those people's day, and that's wonderful for them too, and that has to leave you feeling good also about the interaction. So those are wonderful ideas to just get out and interact.
I would argue that Matt probably doesn't brighten Joe Bob at Target's day in any way, shape, or form.
Well, in West Virginia, Target's a little bit different, but yes.
But there's a viral crash out video right now. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's a girl, and she's actually very upset about student loans. So it's not her being in her interim era, but she's crying, bawling really in the TJ Maxx parking lot because like of what her student loan debt is and what the interest is, and she's sitting in the parking lot because she feels like she's not worthy of going inside because she doesn't really have the financial means to go in and shop. So she also called on like Jeff Bezos to bail her out. So Jeff, if you're listening, like
bail Mark out,
we'll work for it. We don't need a handout.
I wanted to really talk about just quickly before we go too much further is we're diving into stress related and all of that, keeping you up at night, things like that. Dr. Amalia, like when does it what do people need to keep an eye out for that this is maybe getting a little bit more serious? Like what are signs that the stress is getting a little bit too serious?
So I think when it starts interfering with your daily life, and interfering with your relationships. So, are you irritable? Are you grumpy? Are you, snapping at your family members and friends? Are you irritable with your kids? Are you taking out your stress on everybody around you? Is it impacting your ability to concentrate and get things done? So, do you get up, you're not going anywhere? Are you not showering for a couple of days? Are you not getting rest? Are you staying around in the old sweats for a few days in a row? really just not functioning, that's a sign that there's a problem. And difficulty concentrating is a sign of stress, difficulty staying organized. So if all of a sudden, at the beginning you were sending out those resumes, looking at all the job boards and everything, and now you're just getting up and feel like it, and having lack of motivation, lack of energy, and just going through your day and really just not getting anything done because, who cares? And you're just very discouraged and you feel hopeless. That's a sign that you're entering into kind of clinical depression and you really ought to seek help.
Yeah, and we want to make sure that people do feel like they need to seek help, that they do seek that help, right? Because it is extremely important. We know this can be a very stressful time for a lot of people. One of the best pieces of advice I received from this, and no, it didn't come from Mark, but it came from someone else. When I went through this was, hey, you need to come up with a schedule, a daily routine. And that daily routine is not wake up and look for a job from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. It's, all right, I'm going to dedicate, 1 hour or 2 hours to doing this. And then I'm going to spend 2 hours working out, or I'm going to spend 2 hours, working on a home project or something like that. And I think that's, to me, at first, it felt a little bit backward because I'm like, no, wait, like my job now is to find a job. And I need to do that 9 to 5. But the burnout and crash out that can happen from that is pretty high. So, what does that daily routine shift? How does it protect like mental health during a period like this?
So I think it is important to maintain a daily routine because it does help your sleep schedule, which is important. If you start sleeping all times of day and night, that sets off your sleep routine. Exercise raises your mood. So I think it's really important to exercise so that you get those natural endorphins. It's important to, feed your brain. Okay. So if you don't take that time to take care of yourself, you're not going to be on your top game when you're in interviews. If you're not, feeling fulfilled or happy or whatever, people are going to notice that during your interviews. They're going to know that you're not happy. That's going to come across. You're going to have a flat face. You're not going to have any emotions. And they're going to sense that you're not going to get that job. So you really do need to take care of yourself. And taking care of yourself means sleeping well, eating well, exercising, and, get out in nature. Nature helps raise people's moods. So if you're doing all of those things and taking care of yourself, it will show in your interviews. So don't spend all of that time doing job searches because in the long run, it won't pay off.
That's a good point. I mean, with the balance, and I've noticed that even because when your routine does turn into a slog, right? I know when I've had a big interview coming up and I've done a bunch of research and prepped and all that kind of stuff, I found myself exhausted the day of the interview. So, I've taken a nap before and then got up and went out and taken a long walk and even in the heat and all that to then come back in and I'm like, okay, now I'm refreshed and I feel like I'm more focused than if I just, sat around and waited for the job interview to show up and for the time for that. So, I definitely think that that's a very important thing because your main goal is to land a role. And if you're stressing yourself out too much, if you're not getting sleep, you're not following schedule, then you're not your best self, which is what you want.
Exactly. You don't want to show up to an interview with, dark circles under your eyes because you didn't sleep because, your sleep schedule's all off. So I think it's very important to take care of yourself both mentally and physically while you're doing the job search.
And that was some advice that Matt gave me when I was impacted. And I thought it was great.
Yeah, it's tough, right? Because you feel like you have to, that you feel like the time that you put into it and the effort that you put into it will equal the output, right?
Yeah, or it's FOMO, right?
Yeah.
Especially with the 4,000 applicants on every every job posting. Like, yeah, you're afraid you're going to miss out on something great.
Well, and I think you're never going to get all of those. You're never going to get to every single post, and I think that's where you have to accept that. You will never be able to apply to every single job, and you're never going to be able to answer every single. You'll never get all the work done. So you have to allow yourself to say, I'm not going to ever get all the work done, and be kind to yourself. And I think that's what's really hard, is to be kind to yourself. Cut yourself some slack. And in this day and age, we're not kind to ourselves. And I think that's what's really important, is to realize that nobody's
it's the old
perfect.
Stuart Smalley looking in the mirror, Mark. Like, you're good enough, you're smart enough, and gosh darn it, people like me. And, I with somebody that's all the time positive, I struggled with that at the beginning too. Like, I can remember seeing people that were also impacted get roles and be like, darn it, I could have done that job. Like, why didn't I see that and apply for it? And then, I started to think about it more. And, I did a post on LinkedIn like a month and a half ago that was well received. That was more of like, hey, that wasn't your role. That wasn't your fit, right? Like, that was somebody else's. Like, they're struggling too. We should be supporting them and be excited that they found a role. There is a role out there for all of us. So I think trying to stay positive does help, and being positive and cheering on others and helping and supporting others, which is one of the reasons why we wanted to start this. It helps you stay positive as well.
It does, because it's so easy to get caught in a cycle of negativity anywhere. Whether you're employed at a workplace where there's negativity, whether you're, doing something like this and it's getting you down, but really positivity helps you move forward. Negativity keeps you back. Anger keeps you back. So I think it's really important to emphasize that positivity to move forward. And we all are so attuned in this society. We're so into external validation that, I need that title, I need that role, I need somebody to tell me that I'm good enough. And really, in the long run, what's important? The important is really how you feel about yourself. How does your family feel about you? How do the people you care about feel about you? How are you moving forward against yourself? What are your goals, and how are you moving to meet those? Not how you're moving to meet somebody else's goals, because your goal may be to learn juggling. And that might get you a job someday. I don't know, but how are you moving forward toward your goals and that internal validation, rather than somebody else's title or what they think, because they don't know you.
And Matt, I'll see your Stuart Smalley and raise you a Bill and Ted with be excellent to each other and party on. And that party on part is something I'm curious about, Dr. Amalia. How do you feel about large purchases right after a major change in in employment status, or really in a life change in general?
Are you talking specifically about pinball machines, or are you talking about
I was talking about electric bikes.
Electric bikes, which is what I bought. Yes.
Well, that's a healthy thing. Well, that's a healthy thing, kind of, because that's a little cheating, but no, that's a healthy thing. So I guess I think that if that helped your long-term goal of staying healthy and staying sane during your job search, go for it. I really think, what's your goal? Really, is that what makes you happy? And is that much money going to impact your long-term, job search or long-term financial? Is it going to make your family go hungry? Well, if it's going to make your family go hungry, it probably was inspired. If it's going to make you not be able to pay your cable bill and get rid of cable, well, then who cares? It's probably healthier for you to have e-bikes. But I really think, that's where you have to sit back when you lose a job, and you say, what do I really want out of life? Do I want that cable bill? Do I want that cell phone, or do I want the e-bikes and go out and go on that family vacation? Matt, I saw on LinkedIn, you went on the family vacation. Your kids are probably going to remember that their whole life. Okay, so what's more important? This is a time that you have time to spend with your kids. So really, it comes back to, what are your values? And there are pros to cons to everything. And I think in some ways, sometimes this time can be a gift.
I had a summer off since I was in college, right? Or high school even. So, having the summer off, still obviously was still looking and work and trying to find a job, but I didn't take the complete summer off. But spending time with my teenage daughter and all that has been great. And I think, the biggest point behind all of this is it's called the interim era for a reason, because this is interim. Like, this is going to end. We all will find a role at some point. There is a role out there for us, and being able to look back on this and say, oh my gosh, look how much wonderful time I had. Look at what I I did and learned and the people that I helped versus saying, wow, I really crashed out and was mean to my family and depressed and that really sucked and all of that is, you look back on it and go, wow, I guess I didn't use my time as good as I could have, right?
Right. And I think having a goal to learn something is helpful too. So, even if it's a hobby, if it's a professional thing, like you said, use that time to do something that you enjoy or learn something or, something that's fulfilling to you, because you do have that gift of time during that time and make that time something that's wonderful. And that will help your mental health if you make the best of that time. Uh, and there's something called a life pie or a joy pie where you take and you cut up your pie and you say, okay, here's my financial slice, here's my family and relationship slice, here's my work slice, and you cut it up into all the different slices and you decide, for you, which slice do you want to be the biggest? And which slice do you feel you need the most work on? And what are you going to work on next? And I think that's a very helpful exercise to do during this interim time, because it really clarifies your goals and it will clarify probably your job search as to, what type of job, because you may decide, I don't want to go back into the same thing that I went into before because, I want this slice of the pie to be a little bigger and this one to be a little smaller. So I think that, it is a time to pause and reflect on your priorities.
Mark, she had me at pie.
Yeah, I know.
All right. So a couple lightning questions for you.
Uh-oh.
Hot takes?
Yeah, hot takes. Hot takes.
Hot takes.
All right. A job seekers hear no more than I did in high school. A lot more than they obviously hear yes. So how do you recommend people handling that sting of rejection? The constant no's, the constant, whether if it's like an AI rejection of, sorry, we've went another direction, or just the ghosting, never hearing back. How do people handle that constant rejection?
I think you just have to realize it's not about you. It really is not about you. Like, it's just this world, the job seeking world is so crazy these days. Like, it might be about 3 words in your resume that with the AI and things, it may be that the company wasn't even intending on hiring for that job, so, I've seen one company on LinkedIn, they've had the same senior job level posted for a year and a half. They're not hiring for that job. They're hiring for a job that's beneath that, but it's a pool, so I think that it's not about you, it's about them. And you have to step back and say, not internalize that and take that into your ego. You have to say, okay, this is not about me, and move on. And every interview is a learning. You have to take every interview as a learning session and say, okay, maybe that didn't go so well, but hey, I learned this, and move on.
Mark, it's not you, it's me. I mean, it's not me, it's you, Mark.
Yeah, I was more thinking that one job she was talking about, we have probably both applied for it 3 different times.
Probably, and used 3 different resumes. Dr. O, how can people reframe rejection in a healthier way?
Again, I think as a learning experience, because you don't learn anything by doing it once. You learn it by doing it over and over and over again. So it's a learning experience. It's not about you, and move on.
What's the number one question you get asked after you have your first kid, Mark?
When are you gonna have the next one?
When are you gonna have the next one?
Same with a job. Like when you
What's
lose
the number one question you hear? Some people that I talk to, rarely, you call them up and be like, hey, how's it going? First question is, hey, got any job updates? Find a job yet?
Yeah.
What's going on? How do you handle and deal with that constant any job update question from family and friends?
I think we covered it earlier. It's just be grouchy to your family.
Yeah, that's right.
And self-isolate.
That's what I keep telling my friends. When I get a job, you'll know. There'll be signs. We'll be in Disney like 3 days after it.
Well, I think, if it's your close family and friends, I think, you can sit down, you can say, listen, it really upsets me when you say that, or it's really annoying or whatever. If it's somebody that's close enough that you can say that to, a close family or friends, I will share it with you when I get it, but please let's not let that be the conversation every time I speak with you. If it's somebody that you feel comfortable enough to create those boundaries and say, hey, can we not have this conversation every time? otherwise, I would say, come up with a standard phrase or whatever and say, well, I'm working on it. On, you
Yeah.
know, or, just have a standard phrase that you just use all the time in your back pocket to just get that question out of the way and move on, because it's going to come, you know, but you have to not let it bother you too, because then now you just make that social interaction start with you being annoyed and irritated, and you need that social connection. So just find a standard response and move on.
I got one. So if you've got like a close friend and he's starting to irritate your family because he makes fun of your age all the time, even though he's only like 8 months, something like that, younger, and then your mom even brings it up and talks about it, like, how do you address that with like this hypothetical situation?
This has nothing to do with Interim Era.
You say to him, this really bothers me and you need to stop. Like, truly, this really bothers me.
It's funny. It doesn't bother me because like it's been years in the making. It's like an ongoing joke, but you did upset my mom. So
I upset your mom. Oh, that's, well, there you go. See,
yeah. She says that you look older than me.
All right, Mom. Mrs. Palmer, we'll talk. All right. Speaking of that, Dr. O, social media, LinkedIn, job boards, doom scrolling on TikTok. Helpful or harmful during this season of interim?
I think
you said get a hobby, right?
Yeah.
I think it's harmful. I think you need to go to look for jobs and things like that, but I think that it's so harmful because it's never ending, right? Like, and you get contradictory advice, and you can always see another thing. I think, do what you need to do to get a job, do what you need to do to network, but then get off the social media, get out in nature, get out and exercise, get out and interact with other people, real people, not people on LinkedIn. Whoa. Get off of there.
We're on LinkedIn. But
I know.
So what I'm hearing is go places that you can take a good podcast with you.
Yeah. Walk outside, put some earphones in and listen to a good podcast.
On your way to the national park, you can
That's right.
There you go. I love it.
That's right. Is it a good thing to just, when you do experience a layoff, making sure that you're touching base with your PCP, even to let them know what you're going through? What's the best piece of advice there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a stressful time anyways. I mean, what I wish is that it was normalized that everybody, sought counseling during any time of stress, because I think everybody can use help. Everybody can use additional ways to deal with stress, like additional tools in their belt to deal with stress, to deal with sleeplessness, whatever. But I think you really need to seek help if you're feeling helpless or hopeless, or you're feeling like you want to hurt yourself, or you don't want to be here anymore. I think some people, they say, oh, I would never do it. But if you're even thinking about hurting yourself or something like that, then that's definitely a red flag that you have to seek help and you have to seek mental health. There are hotlines, suicide hotlines that you can call. There are things like that. But your family physician is probably the easiest person to get into. But, there are crisis mental health lines. You can go into the emergency room. Those are definitely red flags where you absolutely have to seek help. And, hopefully there's a family member that you can talk with, your significant other. But, if things start to seem helpless or hopeless, you definitely need to be seeking professional help.
What are the benefits of using something to help? I know that we've heard about, putting your electronics away for an hour before you try to lay down to sleep and things like that. But knowing what it's like going through a time like this, your mind's just racing constantly. I know I take melatonin. I've heard other people taking, other things like that. Are there benefits there?
Not a bottle of wine.
Not a bottle of wine.
Well, no. Yes, I was going to say that. So people do turn to things, to controlled substances or alcohol or things like that, or some substances that are legal in some states, but not in others. And those are depressants. So you shouldn't turn to those, because in the long run, those are depressants. So you shouldn't turn to those things. But I think melatonin is definitely fine to take and can help, because it helps reset your circadian rhythms, your kind of sleep-wake cycle. So I think that's just fine to take. I think, exercising during the day helps you sleep at night, but you shouldn't exercise close to bedtime. You should turn electronics off. But I think even just doing those progressive relaxation exercises before bed, like I said, Headspace and Calm, they have they have calm casts, sleep casts, where you can put them on your phone or whatever, but on a dark screen, and they lead you through these like, rooms or things like that
Or
kind of
stories or
distract you.
meditations.
Yes, exactly. And so I think those are very helpful things, even for people who, if your mind is constantly running, they'll help you be distracted and let you fall asleep. So there are lots of things out there that are non-medication that will help you sleep. I think when you get into some of the prescription medications, you do get into medications that are controlled and probably aren't the best long term. There are some, ones that aren't controlled that you can talk to your provider about, that are possibilities.
Awesome. Well, big thanks to Dr. Kelly O'Malia for joining us today. I think the biggest reminder and takeaway that I have is that taking care of your mental health isn't something you do after the job search is over. A lot of times you think of that like, oh man, I'll be okay. Let me just get this job and I'll be okay. It's really part of how you get through it. What's one piece of advice that you hope that everybody that's navigating their interim era right now could take with them?
That you are worthy, and that this is not about you. It's about our country and the craziness of the job market, but that you're a worthy person, and you deserve to be hired. You deserve to have a job. That you have skills. And I think that when people they lose that identity, or they start thinking of things, or they start, thinking that they're not worthy, but I think that they need to maintain that confidence and know that, maintain that sense of self. And I think that's so important. And people sometimes lose that.
It's buried in her name. Like, this too shall pass. This is just a phase.
Yes, exactly. And so, keep going, because it will pass.
For sure. So, Mark, thanks for joining us. You young, strapping lad, you.
There we go.
With your long, flowing locks. Probably the most beautiful kid ever to come out of Kansas City. If this episode hit home, share it with a friend who's in the thick of the job search. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. Right, Mark? Shout out to Mark Palmer. Mark, your sponsor, our wives.
Yeah, we love our wives. Thank you for enabling our pinball and electric bike purchasing habits.
All right.
And this podcast.
Yes. So this has been the Interim Era. Until next time, take care of yourself and keep moving forward.
Drive me crazy. I just can't sleep. I'm still applying. I'm in too deep. Oh, whoa, whoa, crazy, but it feels all right. My interim era keeps me up all night.
Oh, we're doing this. We're really doing this.